Hello everybody and welcome back, and today on this Sail and Chat episode we are going to be talking about all sorts of random things. Initially, of course, the first thing we really want to talk about is you probably felt British battleships. No, the first thing I want to talk about is actually my crappy internet. Excuse my lack of videos recently, but my internet speed has, well, my download's fine, but my upload's completely gone. Getting about 1/5, sometimes even worse, of my normal upload speed. Last night was particularly brutal. I had like 0.7 up. Call the ISP, they don't really have a clue what the hell's going on. So they're looking into it, and hopefully in the next couple of days, something gets fixed. Because seriously, otherwise I'm just going to have to be uploading videos from, I don't even know where. Wherever I can find good upload speed. So anyhow, with that aside, let's go talk about British battleships, because sort of the teaser images came out yesterday. Now, of course, for those of you who are like, oh, well, the teaser images came out, when is the ship coming out? My guess is, now judging from the fact that, you know, patch 0.6.6 is coming, which means that Enterprise is going to be tested, you know, the usual testing cycle by super testers and everything. My guess is that all the British battleships are going to be ready for Gamescom. Kind of like the way that the German battleships were ready for Gamescom last year. I have a feeling that's what the British battleships are going to be like this year. So let's take a look at what we have so far. We have at tier 10, the Conqueror. Alright, so you look at the stats and maybe things don't really look all that great or, you know, whatnot, but you kind of have a sense by looking at the stats what the ship is kind of going to be like. So first of all, the Conqueror's length of 272.2 meters will kind of determine how she does in terms of her turning radius, and she is a big ship. She's roughly the size, I think she's roughly around the size of the Montana, so turning circle radius might not be all that amazing. Her displacement of 60,000 tons does make her a bit of a lightweight compared to the other tier 10 battleships, which probably means that she's going to be sitting on less HP. So that might not be a good thing. Max speed is good, 29 knots. That means she falls right around sort of where the Montana is, about a knot slower. Her guns are big. She's got 457 millimeter guns. Unfortunately, it doesn't allow her to overmatch 32 millimeters of bow armor. So we're not really sure what those guns are going to be like. She also only has 8 of them, which actually means she has the fewest guns out of any of the tier 10s that are currently in the game. You will see something called mine action guns. It's just kind of a translation problem there. Those are just your secondaries. 133 millimeter secondary guns. So those are going to be providing, I guess, some degree of firepower. And of course, you actually have the A guns themselves, which is, from the looks of this, a lot of 40 millimeter guns. So it looks like she's mostly going to just have large and medium caliber AA. My guess is if you pop in like manual A and stuff like that, the A guns are actually going to be pretty effective. I mean, that's kind of how that skill impacts the game right now. Going back to the guns again. Now, I'm not sure if the sort of I guess the way the Royal Navy guns are right now in the game is going to hold, especially because there are going to be some exceptions to the rule. I'm pretty sure ships like the Nelson, for example, are not really going to play by these rules. But typically so far, the Royal Navy battleships, the Warspite and the Hood, they all have somewhat lower velocity guns tied to, I guess, above average weight shells. And so far in the game, the pattern that we see with the Royal Navy guns so far is that they have pretty good vertical dispersion at range. So that combined with good horizontal dispersion means that the Royal Navy in-game right now has pretty good sort of dispersion circles overall. And I'm wondering if that will translate over to these Royal Navy battleships in the future. From the earliest screenshot that we've seen of the Conqueror, it also does appear that she is going to have radar, so that's kind of going to be like what the Missouri is like, although with only 4 guns forward, I do wonder how effective that might be. Moving on, and we're going down to tier 9, and we have the Lion at tier 9, and well, if you take a look at the length, 239.3 meters. She's definitely going to be smaller than the Iowa, definitely going to be smaller than the Friedrich the Gross. So she's a little bit bigger than like the North Carolina, so my guess is that, with that kind of length, she might actually have some pretty reasonable agility. Again, displacement is not as high, so I'm guessing the HP pool is probably going to be smaller, and this might be just a higher tier Royal Navy thing. We don't know. Maximum speed is good, 29.2 knots, at least based on these pictures. Again, everything can change, by the way. And again, 406 millimeter guns, which is quite standard. Secondary guns, 133 millimeters combined with some 40 millimeter A and 20 millimeter A. So my guess is Lion is going to have reasonable AA performance, again, with manual AA, because large caliber AA does benefit from that. But yeah, she's probably going to be a pretty well... I would say she looks like she's going to be a pretty well-balanced battleship. Also, if Wargaming does what they normally do, which is stick to sort of the historical values of things, the Lion is going to have some pretty phenomenal armor protection. I think her belt armor, if I remember correctly, from some of those design studies and stuff like that, is actually thicker than any other battleship that we have in the game right now. Should be about 380 millimeters of belt armor at tier 9, which is quite substantial, mind you. And that might be the thing about all these British battleships. They might just be incredibly well protected overall. All right. One tier, actually no, 2 tiers down, because we don't really know what the tier 8's going to be. Some people have suggested that maybe the tier 8 will be the Nelson. I don't think so. My guess is Nelson probably might be the premium ship. Maybe. We don't know, but she probably will be more of like a premium tier 7. Anyways, okay. So King George V. King George V class battleship, 227.1 meters in length. Again, very, very similar to North Carolina, so probably is going to be reasonably agile. Displacement 42,000 tons. Again, HP pool might be a little bit on the small side, but again, very similar to the Lion. Phenomenal belt armor. I mean, we're talking 370 millimeter thick belt armor on the King George V class battleship. So that's going to be really interesting, because here's a battleship at tier 7 that's packing 356 millimeter guns, but has armor that's on par with tier 9 battleships. I mean, that's a really interesting combination. My feeling is that's what the King George V class might be. It's just a super tanky battleship that other battleships at the tier and even above tier are going to struggle with. Although her guns are going to require a little bit of finesse to use properly, getting to better positions, finding those broadsides, so on and so forth. She is going to have 10 shells coming out, 10 356 millimeter shells, which is going to be essentially the most amount of shells that any ship at tier 7 can output. Mind you, they're smaller caliber. In terms of AA, again, I think all the Royal Navy battleships, so far are probably going to benefit from the manual AA skill, just to buff up those large caliber AA guns. Medium and small caliber AA probably, well, I don't know. Maybe it's going to be okay. Maybe they're just going to be a god-awful, and who knows. The Nelsons, well, like I said, they might be the tier 7 premium, because, again, when they release the teaser image, what tier she's at isn't really indicated, so possible tier 7. My guess is, if you follow the trend, maybe Vanguard will be a tier 8. That's my guess. So as for the Nelson, if she stays as a tier 7 premium, again, she is going to be very, very interesting. She might not have certain British characteristics. If I remember, historically, Nelson actually had lighter shells, so her dispersion might be a little bit more erratic. But they're all forward mounted, which means she can angle very, very well. And with the fact that the British battleships generally have pretty damn good belt armor, means that the Nelson should be really, really tanky. Max speed is kind of slow, 23 knots, but again, fits kind of right in amongst those other tier 7 battleships. Displacement and length and all those things are pretty standard overall in terms of size, but again, these were treaty battleships, so they are all going to be kind of similar in terms of sort of HP pools and all that. Secondary guns, well, they're rear mounted. They might be able to do some stuff, although if I do remember correctly, Nelson's AA overall might not be all that great. Still, British battleships are coming! Yay! I'm excited to see what they're going to look like and how they're going to play. Also, speaking of ships that are somewhat coming, I guess, in the next month or so, Enterprise is making it onto 0.6.6 for super testers and community contributors. So might be looking at the Enterprise soon, and then you guys are going to get a video whenever, you know, the whole thing gets lifted, the NDA thing gets lifted, and they go ahead, right? So we'll have to see how she is. My guess is that Enterprise might follow on very sort of similar to the way that Kaga is in terms of the way she's designed. Perhaps giving her unique drop patterns, you know, one tier lower aircraft, but with like a large hangar. So that might be the thing with Enterprise. Moving on, and wait, War Thunder, when did you start playing War Thunder, Chase? Well, about 2 days ago, I think. Maybe 2.5 days, I don't know. Well, playing it mostly because I'm waiting for naval forces, and I've always been kind of fond of air forces, and now they finally came out with the Italians, and, well, just to say I have a weakness for Italian aircraft in the Second World War. Find them really pretty to look at, and, well, really want to play them. So here I am in a 202. Probably one of the more memorable fights that I got into in the last couple of days. You know, you saw me sort of go head-to-head with that plane earlier. Well, that caused my wing to, I guess, weaken from a little bit of damage there, and then a third of my wing gets shot off. So you'd figure this is the end, but oh hell no. Just keep fighting. And there's kill number 1. And, ooh, okay, plane's not that easy to fly. I'm upside down right now. There we go. Trying to get wings level again, just to maintain. There we go, wings level. Ooh, okay, there we go. There we go. Settle down now. She's still flying. She's still flying. You could maybe blame this on arcade flight mechanics, but you know, like for me, War Thunder is a very casual game I jump on and play a little bit of, and I don't really mind. It's fun, right? KI-27 comes up in front of me, line up the shot, and kill number 2. 2 kills with a third of the wing shot off. Oh, and that looks like there's enemy aircraft now coming behind me. So yeah, kind of hard to shake them off with you know, lack of control surfaces. But I am trying. These 2 are actually behind me. I'm just trying to buy some time for somebody on my team to maybe come and bail me out here. Whoa. Just trying to make sure they don't get guns on me right now. And really just trying to buy some time. Maybe have an ally help me out. Maybe a friend. Was in a squadron with someone at this time. Oh, there we go. There's my squadron mate. Comes in, he drops 1 enemy plane, but I still have this really annoying little biplane. And at this time, I'm still, like, you can hear there's bullets, like, clinging off my aircraft. And I am losing, I think, more and more control, but still flying, still trying to buy some time. Little biplane can't shake him, can't shake him. They're very agile, and, you know, they're not easy to shake at slow speeds, at low altitude. They're just not the easiest things to get away from. Still having more stuff. You can tell the plane's just becoming really hard to control. And oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Rolling, rolling, rolling. Yeah, they took my wings off. Oh well. I still got 2 kills with a third of my wing shot off. I mean, that's a good time. My most memorable battle in the last 2 days. Anyways, on to real life event thingamabobs. I think it was like last weekend was at Anime North. Now, for those of you who are not interested in anime, you can probably skip forward in the video a little bit. There is a tanks thing a little bit later on in this video, which is really cool to watch. You really should watch. Got some really cool clips. Anyway, so yeah, I went to Anime North. Kind of an interesting event. My first time at like an anime convention. First day wasn't all that much. It was just like a market where people were buying lots of stuff, which was kind of like, oh, okay. But the second day was really cool. Lots and lots and lots of cosplayers. Some of them with really, really good outfits, or at least, you know, hey, I've got the ones I thought were somewhat cool in photos right now. But yeah, I mean, I went to a bunch of panels, which is, some of the panels were just really like, whoa. On the second day, which was a Saturday, in the evening, there was a panel. Oh, actually, the first night there was a panel too. That was really interesting. Unpopular opinions. Apparently, you could just go in there and say all sorts of things that weren't very popular. I mean, you could go in there and think that Star Wars 1, 2, 3 was the best Star Wars movies, and 4, 5, 6 were crap. And you know, you have an unpopular opinion, people flame you for your unpopular opinion. Kind of interesting to see in real life. Kind of like my YouTube comment section at times, now that I think about it. But yeah, so that was the first night. The second day, Again, the panels during the day were kind of meh, but there was one in the evening, an 18 plus panel called what was it, Hentai of Horrors? Oh dear. Where they found those things, I will never know. And then it was just one of those things, you went there and you're just like, what? And then on the Sunday, now Sunday was actually really, really cool. Sunday morning, there was a panel that talked about the last Imperial fleet. And this guy who I think, writes sort of historical fiction, or whatchamacallit, alternative universe historical fiction. Wait, is that even a thing? But anyways, it's like a sort of alternative history kind of thing. And he did a panel on the last Imperial fleet. Met a couple of guys there who played warships, so big shout out to you guys. It's fun having a chat with all of you. Oh, and speaking of Anime North, check out this DJ Soda costume. Holy crap. Anyways, so yeah, I'm gonna try to reach out to the guy and maybe get him on a video or something, and we can talk about some like random historical ship stuff. Could be interesting, but then he gave me a card, and the only thing I've got is a phone number, so we'll see how that goes. So once the panel was done, we just bolted. We like literally took off to go to Oshawa to go to the Aquino event at the Ontario Regiment Tank Museum. And so, we showed up there. It was a Wargaming sponsored event. So there was a lot of like World of Tanks players there. I didn't really find anybody for warships, but that's okay. Tanks were still really cool. Here is a Centurion. Oh, and did spend a little bit of time chatting with Q and Meathead and Chieftain. Interesting thing with the Chieftain, at least there's an interesting story there. I was actually invited out on Tuesday, which was like 2 days after this Tanks event, to go to HMCS Haida. They were filming a Naval Legends episode there. So I got to do a little sort of like behind the scenes work in terms of video footage and stuff like that. But they've had some sort of like legal snafu. So, when I get permission, I will release something. If no permission arrives, then unfortunately can't release anything there. There was some really cool stuff about the ship and sort of naval warfare in general, which you might actually see reflected in World of Warships someday in the not so distant future. But we will have to, unfortunately, wait for permission to arrive. Anyways, so, back to the museum. They did have some pretty nice vehicles on display. Probably not as much as, like the really large tank museums out there, but there was a reasonably decent selection. The really cool thing of the day that they did was a reenactment. Again, not fully realistic, but it was nice to hear, some of the guns going off. One thing, for example, they did sort of like they did two sort of things. One of them was a Leopard versus a Leopard. Some people actually won, I guess, tickets to ride the Leopard, and they could like take aim and take shots. The guns were apparently filled with propane, so they made a bit of a pop, although not actually what tank guns sound like. They actually make a cracking sound, not the pop that you will hear. And I have a clip of that as well. Cool little story about this particular little tank right now. This is a Stuart. Is according to Q, they actually managed to get Chieftain into the driver's hatch, which is like tiny. I mean, the space is absolutely tiny. It's like that size. And they actually did like a fire escape drill with him, and he actually managed to get out of there in like less than 10 seconds. He just like kicked his legs up and pushed himself out that way. No idea how, but a really cool little thing that I found out. Anyways, this is the Leopard on Leopard fight that they had. Now, I'm not going to really talk too much, just sort of giving you a little bit of information. So the two Leopards are being crewed by people who won tickets, and basically, well, taking simulated shots at each other. The tank over there in the far distance was actually, now one of the guys who was in the gunner seat apparently was actually a former tanker in the Romanian army. And you'll see that, while the tanks are driving sort of next to each other, he's actually tracking the target all the way. Unfortunately, his gun wasn't working.
Now, we're going to get ready for our little reenactment. This is going to get noisy, folks, but this is quite accurate again. We've got the some of the actual British crews here, and they helped Al figure this all out. And this was a pretty common scenario. We're kind of lucky with the mud this year. Last year we had a sandstorm, which made it a little more realistic, but you couldn't see what was going on half the time. So just sort of picture this in the open desert. The Iraqis never really knew where the Americans and the allies, the British allies, were. So we told you earlier about some of the reconnaissance vehicles. So in this scenario, that's what's going to happen. The reconnaissance vehicles are going to move forward. Land Rover and Ferret reconnaissance vehicles, their job, the SAS and the Ferret, was to shoot ahead, and they were looking around, see where the Iraqis were hiding. And then when they found them, they would use their speed and mobility basically to get away from nasty tanks and things, and call the big brothers in, and we know what happened then. So here we go. These guys are on patrol. They're going through the dunes of the desert. They're going to use their speed to make good escape. That's nasty. So they took out some soldiers, but they didn't have the capability to do much about the armor. So they've called it in, and the British armor is on the way. They now know where the Iraqis are hiding. Charlie's taking out the soldiers while the tanks are concentrating on the tanks and artillery. And there we have victory, and that's really how it played out many, many times over the relatively brief Gulf War.
And that was that, actually. Although the video doesn't do that reenactment justice. I mean, if you were there in person, you could actually feel like you can feel those shots. I mean, the video, it's, you hear the sound and everything, but when you're there, you actually feel it. Now, from my conversations with Q, I found out that this event this year was a little bit of almost an experiment. They didn't have as much time to prep for it, but they are looking at maybe coming back next year and doing a bigger thing. So definitely looking forward to it. If you're around Oshawa, keep your eyes open for this event next year. I think it's definitely going to be worth it to go check it out. Anyways, folks, that does it for me today. Hopefully, internet can recover in the next day or two, hopefully, and I can get back up to my regular upload schedule. Until then, take care, have yourselves a good one, and I will talk to all of you again really, really soon.